pieces and specific cards. The main one to look out for is Alex is not playing these lightning type Pokemon attackers. He is playing just the dark type in order to take advantage of that. And there are a few Pokemon that prizes, but that is a huge prize there for Regan. Prizing the Radiant Serena is big in this matchup. It is in this deck for Lost Zone to heal off the damage from Sableye, to heal off the damage from Cramorant, and to try and negate and buy extra turns. On Alex's side, Galarian Moltres being prized, the Sableye, lots of interesting pieces. So it'll be interesting to see if Alex checks and makes sure to keep Heavy Ball, because Heavy Ball is going to have a lot of value here. That Hisuian Heavy Ball, able to grab a Pokemon out of the prize cards that is a basic. Alex is only playing basic Pokemon in this deck, so it works perfectly here.
What's nice, too, is if you use the Heavy Ball, maybe grab Cramorant for your early game, and then hopefully you draw back into it, you can use that Heavy Ball to grab that Sableye for the late game. I think that Alex Schemanske, without a Lightning attacker, is going to have to really turn up the gas in this matchup. We want to see an excellent chain of Comfey Flower Selectings, hopefully an early Colress, and get that Cramorant knocking on Lugia's door, starting Hawlucha in the active, looking pretty rough.
There is nothing in this hand. The Pokestop finds a Pokegear, but no Battle VIP Pass. There's no Battle Pass in this deck, but no Nest Ball, no Fog Crystal, no way to find any basic Pokemon passing the turn over.
And this is another game where Regan's just getting this bonus turn like we saw in the last Swiss round. Mezagoza here going to hopefully draw a Pokemon. We know that Lugia can struggle if these coin flips don't go the right way off of capturing Aroma.
So I think Regan's debating when to use this Mezagoza, when to utilize the ability to find a Pokemon on the deck on a coin flip to maximize its value. Gonna first discard this single strike Urshifu. Will have essentially negative value in this matchup. You do not need a G-Max one blow Pokemon with 70 to 150 HP is the max with that.
Only if you need to really assert dominance. You just do as much damage as you can. I think we all remember playing the the old Pokemon games and just Hyper Beam on a level 2 Pidgey and just blow it off the face of the earth for a big knockout. But Archeop's going to be grabbed by Regan Retzloff. And, that's 1/3 of the puzzle. We need 2 Archeops in the hand. We got to get them in the discard pile and then get that Lugia V-Star for the Summoning Star. Fortunately for Alex Schemanske, this deck isn't known for its ability to do turn 2 attacks, so just a solo Hawlucha in the active spot means that Alex will not lose all of his Pokemon to immediately give up this first game.
Does find the Archeops. I'd be interested to see if Mezagoza gets used here. You can just grab potentially an Archeops to discard and not have to worry about that.
But yeah, just goes for the Professor's Research right now. Doesn't want to try for the Mezagoza.
I think this play is okay in the sense. I mean, it's good to just keep it as a backup just in case you whiff Lugia, but Alex is not playing anything that can take a one-hit knockout onto this Lugia V this early on in the game. So we'll see what happens here. And wouldn't have mattered anyways. It was a tail. So besides that, does have the energy card. Has access to read the wind to draw 3. There's a lot of pieces you kind of want to keep in this situation. The Yveltal is nice to have as a one prize attacker to sort of trade back and forth. You usually always initiate the prize trade by taking knockout. You definitely will initiate the prize trade, hopefully, in this situation, now that you're going second. And this way,
discards Urn of Vitality, draws 3 cards.
Does draw into an Archeops to potentially discard the following turn.
Colress's Experiment, though, for Alex Schemanske, going to bring this wide open. 3 Darkness Energy being offered up, an Energy Recycler and a Level Ball. Has to get rid of these right now.
That's the only choice you can make here. You can't really afford to get rid of too many of those energy cards, and you've got to keep the Level Ball. But the problem here is...
He's shaking his head. He's probably been in this situation before, testing the deck. Mezagoza not offering up anything to both players.
That's so painful. All this Level Ball can do is grab out the single Comfey.
There's 4 Nest Ball and 1 Level Ball in this deck. Just a touch of consistency to try to get this thing up and running. 1 Colress Experiment, but is there even a way to get this Hawlucha out of the active? That's probably just attach and retreat. I believe it is just a single retreat cost Pokemon.
Yep, so Hawlucha can pivot into the Comfey, but besides that, there's practically nothing going on in this deck. In this hand, at least.
Yeah, and there's 1 copy of Beach Court.
Yeah, so there's no Beach Court in the hand right now, so as long as this retreats, the problem is, even if you find a switching card, or even if you find more Pokemon, you're kind of still on the back foot in this situation. You have to find at least step number 1 here is to retreat into this Comfey, use Flower Selecting. You're looking for some way to get more Pokemon into play. Does find Fog Crystal. It's the immediate grab.
That'll do.
You can start to see these Comfey get chained together, Flower Selectings be used. At least Alex is putting some cards in the Lost Zone, which is key in not only attacking with Cramorant, not only getting Mirage Gate, but eventually setting up Sableye later down the line.
We know that this list, known for its ability to just fill the hand with cards, can get off to awkward starts, just like any other deck. Has Switch Cart now to bring up the next Comfey. Flower selecting number 2 has a Psychic Energy and a Clara.
So unfortunate. You want both of these pieces here. You can't really afford to get rid of the Clara. You can't also lost so too many of these energy cards. Kyogre is a card we haven't talked about, but it's very strong in this matchup at taking knockouts on bench Pokemon like Luminion. You could set up Math and deal 4 prize turns, 3 prize turns, take out double
on
Archeops.
Mezagoza, very beautiful here. We have the Archeops in the hand, right? I believe that just needs to be discarded. Drew it off of Read the Wind, so now we can get Lugia V-Star now, and just going to take a look through the deck and figure out what else do I need to accomplish here. We got to see Tyranitar come through. We need another attacker, not just Lugia.
So the question here at this point is, does Regan have a way to discard and draw cards? And the issue here is there's not much going on in this hand. I think maybe most people would think, oh, you're just going to grab Luminion and maybe discard it, but Luminion is just such a liability in this Lost Zone matchup where your opponent is just going to take advantage of it. And Regan's trying to do everything in his power to play around getting this.
Yeah, the Luminion is a double liability because of the Echoing Horn. Another heads.
Regan is having the time of his life in Mezagoza, having a party in this town, finding a second Lugia V-Star. Question is just how much Archeops can he put into play? Can he get both Archeops in play? Is there any way to disrupt this hand that Alex has built up? Judge would be solid in this position. Has Penny in the hand, so could maybe try and go into something like the Yveltal, the single strike Yveltal, hit with that, and if it gets hit back next turn with something like Cramorant, you can pick it back up and negate the turn on Alex's side. And that's what this matchup comes down to, is how much can you play around Alex, taking multi-prize turns to take the prize trade, make it favorable. It's the big question in this matchup.
And Alex Schemanske did get off to a slower start, and we've seen Regan adapt his game plan, his speed of play, the speed of the game plan based on the opponent's board state time and time again. So I wonder if the Lugia V-Star is just going to be the big attacker here. Just start taking prizes, right? Because at the end of the day, if you aren't pressuring a Lost Zone deck, you aren't taking a prize every single turn, you're going to give them so much time to take a 2-prize turn, a 3-prize turn to catch up and steal the game away from you. So Regan gets the second Lugia V onto the bench. Got another double turbo energy ready to attach.
So this is really interesting. Regan is maybe considering attaching the energy card to this active, and then using the speed, the second attack on the Lugia V. It does 130 damage and discards a Stadium card. Could even just evolve into the VMAX, get rid of this Mezagoza and make the play that way. Just has access to this, is not forced to utilize this V-Star power right now, save it around, and prevent putting Luminion on the bench. It really just doesn't matter in this position if you need to get Archeops out. You could always evolve the active and the bench. You could also keep this here. I think Regan is maybe considering not evolving so that Penny can be used the following turn potentially. But
the 90 damage arrow dive, but does go for the
interesting. Just putting one Archeops
single
in play.
Archeops. So this just shows that Regan understands I want to be aggressive in this matchup. I just want to start taking prizes against the single prize deck and try to put the heat on Alex Schemanske. This is a big risk, however, because if the Lugia V-Star just starts taking prizes, you're playing into the Galarian Moltres. But we saw this before where Regan knows these opportunities where single Archeops is actually the play,
Yeah,
and it paid off last time.
It's hard to play around Galarian Moltres because you need to take prizes to win Pokemon. So
it's generous to say that you even can.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those cards that it's just stronger later on in the game. And I mean, sure, you can avoid usually against some decks like taking 2 prizes towards the end to limit the damage, but this is a 1-prize deck. You're going to be taking 6 knockouts to win this game. Regan using Tempest Dive, taking the knockout, going down to 5 prize cards, and here's another Colbrus's Experiment. At least some better cards to work with this time. Does have access to the Beach Court, does have access to Nest Ball as well.
Yeah, so
getting rid of another energy card, so 3 energy in the Lost Zone already. Yeah, that brings us up to 6, I believe. We had 6 cards in the Lost Zone, so this should be number 7. So Mirage Gate is now back online. Find some more Nest Ball, so we can finally get some Pokemon.
Card. Nest Ball, I think, finds the final Comfey here. There's a Radiant Greninja is actually going to be pulled. I think that now that Alex Schemanski's gotten up to 7, isn't really valuing the Comfey anymore. Regan wanted to start pressuring with that Lugia, trying to get the Lost Zone counter. Denied a little bit, but he's able to get there with the second Colress's Experiment. There's the concealed cards now, discarding the Darkness Energy, drawing a Cramorant and a Water Energy. Very beautiful. There's the bench Cramorant.
So Kramer can come up and attack here, set up for a 2-hit knockout. And Alex is playing Snorlax, so it can follow very nicely. 110 damage to this active Lugia. Now, the only problem with the follow-up on Snorlax is if the Radiant Serena was in deck, healing with the Elegant Heal ability would bring it down to 90, and then Snorlax is 10 damage short of taking the knockout. So Alex doesn't know that Regan has the Radiant Serena prize. In fact, it would be smart for Regan to have not put the Radiant Serena down yet because it's got no Pokemon to heal, and it's very easily searchable. The question here now is, how does Alex want to approach this? Does not have the information so I think this play in this position with the Radiant prize is solid because you hit this for 110 and then you followed up with Snorlax. The problem right now, though, is that Alex doesn't know that Snorlax is prized. So it's kind of this little like mini mind games between each other. You can't really play off your opponent having a 10%, 12% chance of prizing a card, something even lower than that as a one of.
And we saw Regan really have that issue come up with Penny, right? You're trying to, you have to take a specific line and hope that your opponent doesn't have a certain card that's going to negate that play entirely, all the hard work you've put in. And so Alex has to extend into the Radiant Serena. Mirage Gate attaches to the Radiant Greninja.
So this is smart from Alex. Understands that this Greninja play makes a lot of sense. If there's only one Archeops out in play, means that next turn something like Lost Mine can follow up. Even a Cramorant Boss's Orders can follow up and take a knockout onto this Archeops. So we'll most likely see this Sableye target down the Archeops, one other Pokemon, put some pressure on. I'm thinking if it ever makes sense to target both Vs. I think there's a world where maybe you want to set math up on it, but I feel like it's always go after Archeops because after you shut that engine down, your opponent is forced to manual attach. And this pretty much right now puts Regan on a 1-turn timer to use Archeops. Like, this is the last time you can put energy to play. You better make it count.
Regan has the quadruple turbo on the Lugia V-Star in the active, and some energy attached onto the Lugia V. So the Archeops can maybe use this Primal Turbo to get this Tyranitar V in the hand partially set up, and Regan just has to make that bet that the Pokemon that I have right now in play, I'm going to have the energy I'll need to follow through and close out this game, especially with one prize taken. If you look at the map of what's in play right now, still a very tall mountain to climb when you've got a lot of Pokemon that are damaged and are about to give up multiple prizes in a turn.
I think Regan's choice was, do you want to commit to this Tyranitar or do you want to commit to this Yveltal? But I think it makes sense to commit to Tyranitar, especially because you're going to potentially lose this Archeops. You just want a Pokemon that's going to stick around for a little bit longer. Also, Yveltal doesn't really play into the prize trade well. Right now, if you weren't to bench any Pokemon, you would be forcing Alex onto the 6-prize game. However, Alex is playing a copy of Echoing Horn, so that could play around the prize trade if you discard something like Pumpkaboo or some of these one-prize basic Pokemon that maybe have a little bit less HP. But time's going to tell. Alex got a lot of options, even after that slow start. It's looking pretty solid because Regan was only able to get out one Archeops. Yeah,
it was all thanks to that double Chorus's experiment, and Regan couldn't take the extra time to get that second Archeops into the discard pile. It was in the hand, but just wanted to start that aggression. It's going to be a judge here. Alex Schemanske that is going to lose out on that Echoing Horn, but fortunately, Sableye, Cramorant still in play. Maybe we'll get a Lost Zone here, Zone Mirage Gate play here pretty soon to bring those energies back out and keep the prizes running.
Yeah, this is really good for Regan. A great turn is going to be able to use Storm Dive, take the knockout onto this. Tempest Dive, rather, take a knockout onto this active, remove the Beach Court out of play, not give Alex that pivot, and at the same time has established 3 threats on the board. So yeah, Mirage Gate's great, but the real issue for Alex is even if you apply Lost Mine, your opponent, it's going to go down to 4 prize cards here, put on a lot of pressure. You've got to find a way to really make up the prizes, and it really comes down to first. I mean, Mirage Gate is great, but the problem is the attackers aren't really there. You can find Snorlax with this Comfey potentially. What is it really doing for you?
Goes to the Lost Zone. We've got an Escape Rope.
Does have access to Clara. Could bring back potentially the Radiant Greninja and have access to that consistency to the concealed cards. Did, however, shuffle back some energy previous with the Energy Recycler, so I don't know if there's a whole lot of energy. Actually, the Greninja just was knocked out, so there are 3 energy from that. I think just deciding what else to bring back, and it seems like Alex is pretty set on trying to utilize Kyogre later on in the game to take a big knockout with Aqua Storm, having access to that concealed cards to draw more cards, but I have to imagine is going to try to find a way to get Colress this turn, or I can't Colress this turn, so the question is, how are you going to attack? Is it just a Cramorant into the active? You're putting on some pressure, but I don't know if it's enough, especially if Regan can get down Radiant Serena and start to heal his board off. Of course, it is prized, unfortunately, but that's one of the risks you're taking. I don't really feel, it doesn't feel great to be playing off a risk that your opponent's card they need to stay in the matchup or to put themselves in a favorable position is prized. It just doesn't feel great to see that.
the final nest ball, going to grab another Comfey. Alex Schemanske, just a couple cards off of activating Lost Mine, needs to take some prizes just to try to get this Galarian Moltres out of the prizes as well. So you have your late game option.
Okay.
Regan Retzloff has kind of lit the fuse on this game, and it's just a matter of time before it comes down.
So we're going to see Greninja attack again. This makes sense. Mirage Gate can put the energy back on. Clara grabbed the water energy from the discard pile. As long as Alex has a way to pivot, can utilize Moonlight Shuriken 2 turns in a row with the Clara. Does have that and has the
Switch
escape
card
rope.
or escape rope.
So I think Switch card here is just better because you can save escape rope later on for not only just Lost Mine, but you can also save it if you want to make a play with Kyogre to bring a Pokemon back to the bench to be able to hit it with Aqua Storm. So usually just doesn't matter in this case. Moonlight Shuriken can target any two Pokemon in play. So we'll target down this benched Archeops. And I have to wonder where the damage is going to go. You could put it on the active. That way it puts itself to 180 damage. It's, again, just one of these things where the healing would mess up math a little bit, but it is in not only Lost Mine range, but it's also now in Cramorant range, 180 damage, so 100 HP left remaining. Alex responding back, going to 5 prize cards, and Regan has no Archeops, no energy acceleration for the rest of the game.
It's going to come down to, do I have enough energy to draw to find those lines? Plays Professor Burnett, trying to thin the deck down just a little bit.
Yeah, so
you just look through your deck, find 2 Pokemon, send them to the discard pile. Normally you use this early in the game to get those Archeops down. But, you know, here it's just for the sake of looking in the deck, refreshing your memory, thinning it down a little bit, so you have a higher chance of drawing into energy now that you have no Archeops to just pull them out with Primal Turbo.
Regan's strategy, it seems at this point, is just to say, hey, I've got to attack 4 more times. I've got 3 attackers on my board. You've got to take 3 more prizes, or you got to take 5 more prizes. I think my Pokemon can survive enough to take 4 more attacks, starting with this turn. So Alex is on a clock of 3 turns to win this game. That's what it comes down to. And Regan is going to do everything in his power to avoid benching Lumineon because it doesn't feel it's worth the risk, even of grabbing something like Judge to disrupt. It just, at this point, is not worth it. Maybe towards the end of the game, once things get a little bit closer, it will have a little bit more value. But for now, that's all it's going to be. Actually deciding to retreat this Lugia out of the active, puts an energy off of it. I think maybe understands that Alex is going to want to target that down regardless. And now, with 2 flower selectings, with 2 more cards in the Lost Zone, Alex will finally be at that magic number, that magic 10 cards, and Lost Mine will be online.
Escape Rope comes through as well. This will allow Sableye to come into the active. So do you just promote the damaged Lugia? Nope, going to bring the Tyranitar up. Regan just trying to say, I don't want this Cramorant to get a free KO. I'm going to bring up the Tyranitar. I'm going to have another attacker prepped and ready to swing in. Get more flower selectings, puts a Hisuian Heavy Ball in the discard pile, and then this is going to be the Attach Retreat.
I think it's just working out with the energies are there and available, because there is a Psychic Energy in the Lost Zone. There are none in the prizes, but just wants to make sure all the energy are there correctly.
Yeah, so it is going to be Cramorant. No Sableye this turn.
Yeah, this makes sense. Retreating the energy there. And so smart play by Regan to retreat. It does force out the boss's orders supporter, so that is one more resource Alex will not have available. Going down to 3 prize cards, and after a slow start, Alex has found a way to tie things up.
When it's back over to Regan, we're getting Lugia V-Star into the active. It has enough energy attached to still keep the Tempest Dive up and running, but we need 1 more attachment onto the Tyranitar V. 2 more, rather, right?
Well, 1 will activate the Single Strike Crush, or the...
It gets bonus damage,
My bad. Cragalanche will be 1 more energy. So the idea is that you're already hitting Dark Weakness on Sableye, and 3 Single Strike energy is enough to knock out Cramorant. The only thing you're not knocking out would be... And you're knocking out Galarian Moltres as well, I believe.
Okay.
The only thing you're not knocking out would be Snorlax, and that's the big issue. But you could always utilize the second attack, the Single Strike Crush, to deal 240 damage. But this is, again, just Regan playing the super passive. Says, I don't think that you can take 2 prizes. I don't think you can take 2 knockouts on these 2 big Pokemon. And this is actually also so smart from Regan. Not benching any other Pokemon means you force Alex to play Echoing Horn, because Kyogre can only target bench Pokemon with the Aqua Storm attack. So it's not allowing Alex to set up these big multi-prize turns unless he can find that additional resource on top of everything else that's needed to power up that Aqua Storm attack.
And there's an Escape Rope, brings Tyranitar
that's so
up.
Tough. Regan does not have any energy cards in deck, can't search them out with Archeops. And this is the problem. You're going to put 110 damage on the active, setting up for a Lost Mine to take a knockout the following turn, and slowly whittling away at this Lugia. Has Alex found a potential to get in? This is a big top deck. Oh, actually does have the energy card, so there is gift energy, drew it off the prize cards, and has it in hand, but this damage on the Tyranitar could be dangerous if there's something like an Echoing Horn to bring back another one of these V Pokemon to try and set up for an Aqua Storm next turn.
And we've even got one more Clara, right? So we can bring the Sableye back with the Psychic Energy, get another Lost Mine going. So it seems like Alex Schemanske might be able to pull this one out because...
It's so tough, though. The problem is Regan's going to go to just a single prize card. He's going to mill 2 cards out of Alex's deck next turn. So if Regan mills the Echoing Horn, then Alex has no way to take multiple prize cards. I mean, Regan can attach, and Alex can maybe try to put up a Pokemon that has more than 120 HP. But the problem is, at that point, just, a Tempest Dive will just take the knockout straight up. So Regan is in a very favorite position. Going to go to 1 prize card, have 2 powerful attackers on board. It doesn't matter what you bring up, what you knock out. There's going to be enough damage to do there. Here we go. It looks like Cragalanche taking the knockout on Sableye. What does it discard? Discards the Echoing Horn. That's a huge discard. That takes away Alex's win condition to potentially win this game. And he's going to scoop things up. A huge discard there for Regan, finding a way to secure himself 100% the win condition. That was such a lucky yet powerful discard off of that, taking game 1. Regan going up in the set.
When 2 players of this caliber go up against one another, the difference between victory and defeat certainly is 1 card, 1 coin flip, 1 bad discard, and you can see that it is so close for both of these players, and that was only game 1.
Alex is in the tank right now. He's thinking, what can I do differently when my opponent does not give me access to utilize Aqua Storm, and they're not putting these multiple Pokemon in play? Regan might have found a strategy here to navigate this matchup with just a single Archeops in play. Again, I think the cards did go his favor. A lot of the times you're finding yourself forced to bench Lumineon to make sure you're getting the attacks off when you need to, but Regan had a very strong hand. So I think this strategy is very solid for Regan in game 1 when he was able to draw into exactly what he needed, put on pressure. He was able to find 2 double turbo energy to start attacking quickly with the Lugia V-Star. But as we know, there's a lot of variance in Pokemon. Things can change, so I'm very interested to see how these players set up in their opening turns. It could determine a lot. Alex will have the opportunity to go first, so it could potentially slow Regan down. Alex can be the first one to hit in. We'll see how things go. Gonna make it even easier for Regan to potentially get set up with a mulligan.
Now, both players did get off to somewhat awkward starts. We know that Alex Schemanske didn't really have anything to do with just Hawlucha starting in the active, and then Regan was also in a bit of an awkward spot, not wanting to take that additional time to get the second Archeops into the discard pile. And I think what that tells us, Ethan, is that there is a chance that one player could have their deck's optimal start, while the other opponent may have, you know, that awkward start. And then you just run away with the game. We'll see if there's a chain of flower selectings, or maybe if Alex Schemanske going second and then gets the Cramorant.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a concealed cards, and hope we find some of these nest balls. And speaking of which, they are hiding out in the prize cards, not where you want them. These are your opening search cards. These are cards you want early on in the game. Getting a mulligan card, and here we go. It's going to be a big turn for Alex. Can he find somebody to set up? And wow, big time top deck there. Finds the Comfey, has access to concealed cards, and does find 2 copies of Colress's Experiment. Exactly what he was looking for off of this.
Cart, flower selecting, another Comfey, another switch cart. Yes, it's coming together.
Yeah, so what looked to be a pretty poor start for Alex.
There's the attach and retreat, another flower selecting, yet another switch cart, and a darkness energy. It's a tough choice. Yeah, we haven't really seen where the rest of the energy are lying, but it's just going to accept, yes, I want this in my hand, and pretty decent, especially compared to game number 1. Regan, meanwhile, starting off with Lugia V in the active. This could just be a great attach return. Professor Burnett, though, is going to take 2 Archeops out of the deck, put them in the discard pile. Then you get to check through the deck and see what those prize cards are looking like. There's 1 Tyranitar V in the prizes, I think, again. No, that was Urshifu VMAX.
So this is a really great draw from Regan. Very rarely do we just see the Professor Burnett in hand, just without having to search it out with Lumineon on turn 1 or turn 2, but it's exactly what you want. It means you can commit your draw supporter next turn to drawing more cards out of your deck. It means if you just have the Lugia V-Star in your hand, you can go for that play. I'd be really interested to see if Regan just would have still put the second Archeops out into play if he had it game 1, or if this is the strategy he wants to do, just put a single Archeops in play, 2 Lugia V-Star and a Tyranitar, and just say, hey, if you're not going to Echoing Horn, if you're not going to make that play, if you're not going to put any Pokemon on my board, I'm going to force you through 7 prize cards if you want it like that.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're drawing a lot of energy to your hand, if you look at the deck and you see there's a lot of energy in the prizes, you know the Primal Turbos aren't going to be that useful. And depending on how easy Regan has of getting the Arceus shot, they go to the discard pile.
Yeah, those Lugia should be in there. Okay, Archeops should be in the discard pile. So I think we're good now. I think I've got everything taken care of. Look at this hand. No draw supporters, but does have Lugia V-Star, so that is the piece that you kind of need to, again, just play this super passive board. Has Nest Ball as well. Can potentially next turn find Tyranitar. I think the option is sort of how do you want to play this, but here we go. So a little bit of early consistency with Read the Wind.
Discards the Urn of Vitality. Draws 3 cards.
I think we're just making sure everything is on par right now. Here we go. 3 cards drawn. We're all set. And Alex has got the perfect supporter right now.
Echoing Horn. Grab that. Fog Crystals looking nice. Boss's Orders also very useful. Tough decision here. What is that card there?
So 2 Fog Crystal, Mirage Key, Energy Recycler, and Echoing Horn. I think Alex is going to probably want to hold on to that Echoing Horn after what happened in game 1. Has Boss's Orders as well. But
he had it in hand before, and it got shuffled in with Judge and then discarded. It was very tragic.
Yeah, so this hand has a lot of cards.
Another Flower Selecting, Darkness Energy, going to the Lost Zone, has a Nest Ball now. Can grab Cramorant.
So it does have the switch card, so it can switch this into the active spot. The problem
Mirage Gate going to the Lost Zone to preserve Galarian Moltres.
The problem is, what Pokemon do you want here to work with? You have the Cramorant. Nest Ball could potentially find something like the Snorlax out of the deck. I think Cramorant's probably what you're going to want to attack with this turn. You could possibly get there if you have 1 more access to Flower Selecting, but I think Alex understands. I've hit my quota for this turn. I've done what I want to do. I can sort of just attack with this Cramorant, set the math up, and hopefully you don't have the Radiant Serena, because by benching it, it could potentially be a liability down the line. It does heal, but if you don't heal it off, I've still got Snorlax. I can attack with that and try to set up a 2-hit knockout. Stay paced a little bit better than in the last matchup. Again, you have to remember, in that last game, Alex was behind the turn in terms of hitting because he whiffed on that first turn. Wasn't able to do what he needed to do.
And there is the attach and retreat. Cramorant spit innocently for 110, and it's over to Regan. Capturing Aroma is the draw for turn. We have Lugia V-Star in the hand already. We can evolve and get the Summoning Star right away. And as you already talked about, Ethan, Tyranitar is just also within an easy reach. Flips heads on the Capturing Aroma. Find an evolution Pokemon.
Yeah, this is just more thinning going on for Regan. And I mean, I hate to say it, but Regan's game plan is pretty dull and boring. It's just to power up these attackers, continuously retreat in and out where you need to, and just hope that you can attack 6 times before your opponent takes all your prizes. And that is Pokemon in the nutshell, but there's no disruption really aspects. I mean, if you find Judge, then sure, yeah, you can play Judge to limit your opponent's hand, but playing things like Lumineon down is not a great option. And here we see the Radiant Serena is in the deck. So maybe
there's the Nest Ball.
Regan is going to play this a little bit differently than last game, and I think that's it. The Radiant Serena, great to put it down this turn because, again, you want to play around Snorlax, taking a knockout next turn with Thumping Snore, actively playing around that. Super smart. Means this Lugia V-Star is going to stay up and not healthy, but it's going to stay up and not be knocked out next turn.
Archeops now coming onto the bench thanks to Summoning Star, the classic. And now we've got Primal Turbo #1, going to get these Lugias powered up. Looking at the V-Guard energy, a double turbo being pulled to the front. Also going to take this opportunity to count, see how many energy are still left in the deck, and just plan your turns accordingly. It's actually a bit similar, right, to Lost Box, where if the game kind of starts to drag on, you're running out of those resources, those energies in the deck for Primal Turbo to get set up.
Luckily, you're not facing as much pressure in terms of energies, but it makes the same sense, right? As the game goes on longer, you've got more things you have to take care of. More Pokemon are getting knocked out, so you have to put together different plays to keep everything up and healthy. But Regan is playing this differently than game #1, deciding to still not bench Lumineon, but this time has access to the Radiant Serena. So maybe that was a factor for why Regan played through game 1. Now has access to this, now utilizing Primal Turbo #1 and #2. Putting 2 energy onto this active Lugia, and I think this signals that Regan is probably retreating this active Lugia V-Star out of the active, wants to attack with this Lugia V, and we could actually see it just attack and not evolve, signaling back to the penny that's in the deck potentially. Maybe if Regan has access to that card, that would make sense for why we'll see the V attack instead of the V star.
And that's the idea, right? You're just playing your deck in the way that is the hardest for your opponent to deal with. Just continuously frustrating them. And with double turbo energy, V-Guard, and gift energy, Arrow Dive is available.
Yep, 110 damage after the double turbo energy, so perfect math to take the knockout on to Cramorant. Alex has another Colress in hand, flower selecting first, deciding to flower selecting before that, going up to now 7 cards in the Lost Zone. So the choice of supporters is either the Clara in hand, could play the Colress Experiment. Colress plus 1 more flower selecting would get Alex to Lost Mine range, which I think would be pretty solid here. So I think Alex made the right decision grabbing that. But what are the 5 cards? A lot of pieces you don't want to get rid of.
Another Recycler, is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
And then an Escape Rope, a lot of great options.
I think at this point, you kind of got to keep Energy Recycler if you're going to commit to this Kyogre line of play. If you have enough pivoting cards, maybe the Escape Rope goes. But also the problem is you can't continuously Lost Zone a lot of these energies because you need to have about 5 to 8 in your discard pile. If you're going to go down, you need to usually have about 8 so that you have enough to not only power up the Mirage Gate, but then also once you discard those last couple of cards, you can discard those energy.
Yeah, this is a very, very difficult decision. It's going to be Nest Ball and a Water Energy.
I think 1 energy has to hit the Lost Zone, so it's really just Alex's choice on which energy you want to get rid of. I think keeping the Psychic is smart because you're going to want to Sableye this turn, so it means you don't have to commit your Mirage Gate just to finding out a single energy card out of your deck. And this is what Alex is going for. Had to save the switching card, it looks like, or decided to pitch it away.
Yeah, keeps the Nest Ball to get the Sableye out because we remember those Fog Crystals are now in the Lost Zone, so we've got to just get this Pokemon down into the bench.
Yep, as long as there's 2 switching cards in the hand. Oh, wait, we might actually be playing off of Pokestop here. Hold on. I think we're spinning the wheel, Adam.
We've got to find 2 switches here. Mirage Gate, a level ball.
That's not great. It means that Alex may be forced to Mirage Gate onto this active Pokemon in the bench and look to potentially find this. He's got concealed cards as well. No,
I saw Pokegear and what else?
Pokegear and Snorlax, but there's no switching cards in this hand.
And now with Comfey in the active, Alex is going to miss a beat once more. No big attack coming through. Missing some damage, goes for Energy Recycler.
Yeah, this Energy Recycler will still get back the full 5, so it is getting good value, putting these energy back into the deck. Does have the Mirage Gate, but it's, again, it's actually going to be on this Comfey if the Comfey can find a switching card. So part of it is like you always want to put these energy back because you want them later for Kyogre, but technically by Alex playing the Energy Recycler, he just put 3 cards into his deck that are not switch, which he wants to not find. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like you want the resources, you got to kind of put them back, but at the same time, if you're going to commit to this play, you've now given yourself even more cards that you don't want to play.
All right, it's all on the line here for Alex. Manual retreat into the Comfey. Flower selecting needs a switch card.
No, doesn't find it. And wow, that is so unfortunate. It means this Comfey is going to be stranded in the active spot. There's no way to... I mean, you can technically power it up and spinning attack, but that doesn't make any sense. So he's just going to have to pass the turn over.
Now it's over to Regan.
Bonus turn for Regan. And that means also 1 more turn of using Elegant Heal to slowly heal down this Lugia V-Star on the bench.
There's a boss's orders in the hand, thinking about maybe just bringing out the Sableye, forcing a Clara.
Wow,
Sableye comes up.
This is strong. This means that Alex is going to have to set another one up this turn or commit to Clara earlier than he'd like to if he wants to Sableye this turn. Elegant Heal being utilized as well. So this puts the Lugia now at 210 HP remaining, which means there's nothing that's going to really set it up for a one-hit knockout. And if it doesn't get touched again, it means something like 2 Cramorants won't be able to take a knockout on it. Even 2 Sableye potentially won't be able to take a knockout with it because it will go to 250 if it heals 2 more turns.
And with the Sableye going to the discard pile, Alex Schemanske needs a Clara. We've got a Colress's Experiment. We've got Level Ball. But yeah, there's 2 Frog Crystals that are already in the Lost Zone.
It's tough here. You've got 1 more Sableye in, so you can technically go for it. But the issue is it really worth it Lost Mining this turn? I mean, if you Lost Mine, you're going to just most likely put most of the damage counters on the Lugia. You can't spread the counters all over the place because the Radiant Serena is a much powerful ability with Elegant Heal when it's taking damage counters and healing it off multiple Pokemon. When you consolidate it to 1 or 2, it's only healing 40 per turn. If you put it on 4 or 5, it's healing 100 a turn. It's a big difference down the line with this Lost Zone deck trying to set up math in a meticulous way.
Level Ball grabs the second Sableye. We don't have the Psychic Energy in the hand, it looks like. I think we're down a Mirage Gate as well from way earlier. So it does become quite difficult. Another Mirage Gate has to be used here.
Yeah, I think just committing to this to put the energy on the Snorlax. And Alex is pretty much saying, look, I've got to start attacking into you, and I've got to start filing things off. I've got to hope you don't have the Lugia V-Star in your hand to try to maybe sneak a prize in next turn with Sableye and not have to deal an extra damage. Because this is relevant if it doesn't find the evolution. It means that there's there's 6 less damage counters that need to be placed on this 2 prize Pokemon. Instead, Flower selecting, we're way past the number right now. We're simply drawing cards and hopefully getting rid of stuff that we don't need down the line.
Yeah, Cramorant goes to the Lost Zone. Still a very awkward position after everything is said and done. Coral's Experiment also being looked at. Now being played, 5 more cards.
This is kind of awkward. I think the Hawlucha can definitely go, and I feel like having Beach Court to save it as a pivot later is better than Colress. You're already so thin in your deck. Clara is going to really be the supporter that you want to play down the line. But
you need the Thumping Snore as well to make sure you take a prize. Because then if it's kind of just sitting in the active, it gives Radiant Serena a chance to just keep healing, and then you have to keep using your switching cards, right, to get the sleeping Pokemon out of the active, wake it up, keep the attack chain going. And as we've seen so far over this game, Alex Schemanski's used so many switching options.
So Thumping Snore, 180 damage. That will be healed down right away with the Radiant Serena to 160. And this Lugia V-Star, which got hit by a Cramorant, is now below half the damage that was done. It's going to go down to 50 damage on it, 30 the turn after that, and slowly start to heal away. There's the Elegant Heal, and you see how much value this Radiant has. Before this deck played Radiant Charizard when there were Aurora Energies. Now with no real great Radiant to play in this deck, I guess Radiant Gardevoir and this are the only considerations. This card has a lot of value against these Lost Box decks.
When you have to deal a bunch of damage and then clean it up later, this is the bane of your existence. And now with the Capturing Aroma, flipping tails, you can search for a basic Pokemon. Looks like Yveltal is being looked at. Regan might not even need it from this position, but is just seeing what do I want to thin out. Double checking the energy totals. You can see even in a position like this where Regan kind of has the game under control, still has to make sure to play the rest of this out very cleanly, doesn't want to paint himself into a corner and, end up having to take this to a game 3. But right now it's looking very favored for Regan Retzloff.
Has the Yveltal, can put that on the bench potentially. I think Regan has finally said, you know what?
That's how you know right there. I no longer fear your deck.
Oh, this
I have
makes
the
so
Lumineon
much
V.
sense. Alex committed to this Snorlax to deal 180 damage to this active, can play the penny to pick up this Lugia V, which was intentionally not evolved, heal the damage off, put the energy into the hand, bring this Lugia V-Star up that's slowly been building up, slowly healing the damage off, and be able to deal enough damage to knock out the Snorlax. It hits every point. It makes sure you're dealing enough to knock it out, it takes damage off the board, and it makes sure putting on pressure. Regan will go down to 3 prize cards. Alex will have taken 0 with only 50 damage on the board total.
Absolutely beautiful play. Regan Retzloff has envisioned this entire board state from the get-go. Has Penny now to scoop up the Lugia and all attached cards.
Oh, wow.
Lumineon V comes into the active.
Oh, I think maybe deciding to potentially attack with Yveltal. Deciding to bring Lumineon up, and I think that might be what's happening. However, the problem here is you can bench the Yveltal, but of course. I forget Beach Court is in play. So Beach Court is in play. It means this Lumineon is a free pivoter. It feels so weird because usually every single Pokemon that comes up has 2 retreat costs in this deck. A lot of them.
Right, and that is important to note. The Beach Court only affects basic Pokemon, so Lumineon V is just a free pivot here.
So this is a smart play because it means the bench space opens up. Yveltal can get benched. 3 single strike energy are played down, and now the single strike wings can deal 170 damage, knocking out this Snorlax.
Every time Alex Schemanski's tried to make an aggressive play, he's been 1 or 2 cards short, and Regan Retzloff has taken advantage of every single window of opportunity to undo all of Alex's hard work. There's the knockout on the Snorlax. 1 more prize taken. 3 to go for Regan Retzloff to advance into top 4.
So the problem is, what can Alex do? Again, Regan is on a 3-turn clock to win this game. So you got to think to yourself, right? And when you're watching this, how can Alex take 6 prize cards? With Echoing Horn, technically the knockout is there with Aqua Storm on the Lumineon and the Lugia, and then taking 2 more prize cards on another 2 prize Pokemon.
Yeah, and the Evital with 130 HP, you know, survives against the Lost Mine, survives against Cramorant, and this, because it's already set up and ready to go in the active, you've got to commit a little bit more. Galarian Moltres finally rearing its ugly head with the Malevolent Charge, gets powered up, and can now start taking prizes now that Regan's taken a few prizes. And the only thing I'd have to say from here, Ethan, is that a couple of Kalaras have already been used, so we can't really loop this Galarian Moltres the way we would really like to in this late game scenario.
And again, utilizing that beach court, going to just think about what attacker to use, bringing this Lumineon up. Galarian Moltres having 120 HP means that a Cragalanche can take the knockout with 3 single strike energy, and that could also discard some of Alex's cards in the deck. Could potentially provide a little bit more disruption. I think Regan's just going to take a look, see what resources are gone, and make a play. But if you're Regan, you're still in the driver's seat. Alex has got to take 5 prize cards in 2 turns. I mean, that's a pretty hard feat. Normally, it means that some sort of Kyogre play is going to have to go down. And there's already been 1 energy recycler played. There's already a good amount of energy in the Lost Zone.
The only thing I can say,
judged either.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is that because of the penny, there's a lot of energy in Regan's hand, so the Primal Turbos aren't going to be accelerating these out as quickly as you would like.
Yep, that's true.
So when you're going for these manual attachments, maybe there is a small window for Alex to do something here, but there's still a couple gifts still in the deck. But you can see Regan is really agonizing on how exactly to get these distributed.
Primal Turbo being used, trying to take a look and see how many energy are left in the deck. There is a single strike energy, funny how that goes, as well as 2 gift energy. So, I mean, the options there even is the option to, if you have an attachment for a turn, you can swing with Archeops this turn and take a knockout on that with Speed Wing. That's a potential. Deciding to just not grab any energy off of there. This could be a pretty big tell from Regan to maybe try and bluff to Alex that, hey, I'm out of energy cards, try to like boss stall up my Serena and see what happens type of play.
But Alex Schemanski's been tracking his own energy. It becomes second nature to you as a Lost Box player, and I think that when you're up against Lugia, you also are going to try to track their energy as best as you can.
Yeah, of course you're always going to try. Sometimes there's just a lot happening within this, and I mean, Regan isn't
when your
really
back
forced.
is against the wall.
Yeah, I mean, Regan's not going to lose both Archeops next turn. If Alex tries to go for an Aqua Storm, he'll probably just deck himself out and lose the game that way, and that will only take 2 prize cards. So by doing this play, you just add a little bit of mystery. You start to create some doubt.
Is Alex Schemanske down to only 2 cards in the deck? Do you just Cragalanche to go for the deck out?
I don't think there's 2 cards left. I think there has to be more than that otherwise.
But just goes for the Tempest dive, discards the beach card.
You would have to have had the Urn of Vitality anyways to do that because you just lost 3 of your single strike energy. But here we go. Alex is on a 2-turn timer to win this game. Regan, 2 prizes left, plenty of energy, plenty of resources left, and 2 Archeops to get it down. Pokegear, just 1 card in deck. Take a look and say, it's not a supporter. I don't want it. I'm just going to keep it here. And
it flashed very quickly. I think it was a Psychic energy.
I think so. So there's a boss's order, so the boss can potentially bring... See, but this is the issue, is if you don't take a prize card this turn, you cannot win the game. It's not possible. And unless you're finding a way to take 5 prizes, which, look, we saw 6 early this weekend, but with this deck specifically, I don't think we're going to see the 5 prize turn. I don't think it's possible with Alex's deck.
All right, so there's the energy recycler. Can find 5 energy, shuffle them back into the deck. And so this deck is all energy now, if things
energy
are
in one,
working
and 1
out.
Card. Energy in 1 card.
5 energy plus 1.
Yeah. So, okay, this is actually possible. Brought the Snorlax back with Clara in the previous turn. Can Mirage Gate onto the Snorlax. Powered up.
The Comfey was the final card.
Powered
so there
up.
We go.
Play boss's orders. And that's what Alex was looking for. Use the flower selecting first to make sure to guarantee an energy attachment. Actually get the most fortunate draw because you lost zone the 1 card that you want to lost zone in your deck. Has that, has the pivot in hand with Escape Rope, can boss up the Lumineon. And Alex is pretty much saying, I've got to find Echoing Horn, I've got to find a way to Kyogre next turn. If I can't do that, you got the game. You're just going to be able to take your last prize next turn.
So let's see it after the escape rope decision is made.
Yeah, I think
Regan goes first.
Yeah, Regan's just going to bring this Archeops up, which is fine, but Boss's Orders are going to get played on
Boss's
Luminion.
Orders. I want Luminion instead. Bring this up into the active, and there's the big thumping snore, and Snorlax stays awake.
He's going in that clutch energy here for Alex. He says, I know you need some assistance, so I'm going to stay awake and alert for this play. So we talked about Echoing Horn, but of course, Echoing Horn can be avoided if Regan can find a way to bench 2 non-V Pokemon. That means that Echoing Horn will have no Pokemon to bring space into. There's really no space to put it on. But looking at his list, I don't think it's possible. The Single Strike Yveltal is already gone. You could put Pumpkaboo down, I guess, but there's only 3 one-prize Pokemon on the deck besides Archeops, so there could be the potential. It sounds really weird, but what you could also technically do if you think your opponent's down stadium cards is to play Pumpkaboo down, and then you play Collapse Stadium to make sure they can't Echoing Horn and utilize that extra bench space. But at this point, again, it's still...
Yeah, I feel like
it sounds goofy, but it might be what you're trying to do because it's the only way your opponent can win.
Regan doesn't have anything, so he just takes the knockout, goes down to 1 prize remaining. Comfey comes into the active. There's the drop return. It's a Water Energy. We've got Kyogre now in the hand and a Water Energy to attach return. Are we out of Mirage Gates, by the way?
I don't know at this point.
Escape rope.
Yeah, I think this is just always bringing up the Archeops of the energy. Flower selecting can come up into the active potentially. There's the Clara to bring the Snorlax back. You can bring Dark Energy back. I think this is just Alex saying, I'm going to attack with the Dark Energy. Oh, wow, wait, this is interesting too. But the problem with this is, I guess your only play here is to play another Boss's Orders. You can target down this bench Lugia V-Star. It has 10 damage on it. So because your opponent has taken 5 prizes, you can take the knockout. But you already played Clara as your supporter for turn. So what can you really do in this position? I think Alex may understand.
There's the Malevolent Charge.
I think Alex's win condition is that Regan brings up Lugia V-Star off of the bench with this escape rope, but Alex has got to switch his Pokemon. He's going in with the Moltres, going to attach the energy to the active. I think he understands. He's just going to play the Echoing Horn and say, hey, you know, the Luminia can go on the bench, and that's it. Alex understands. He doesn't have a win condition in this game. Regan Retzloff takes it 2-0, advancing into top 4 here at the Portland Regional Championships.
Very well played. What Regan Retzloff was able to do during that set was just pressure this Lost Box deck in a way that it was uncomfortable at every turn. Alex Schemanske had to use a lot of important late-game resources, the sort of combo pieces that you love to save for later on, earlier in the game and at very bad points to just bring Pokemon back, just to stay afloat. And then once it all came down to the wire in that late-game scenario, we didn't have the Mirage Gate and the Energy Recycler and the setup for the Aqua Storm the way you really needed to come through there and the 11th hour.
That's pretty much Alex's route for this matchup in most games. Doesn't play anything like Raikou or Dragonite to take big knockouts. You do have the Galarian Moltres later down the line, and you had the little combo with Snorlax and the Cramorant, but the problem with the Snorlax Cramorant combo is if your opponent has Radiant Serena to heal 20 damage, you're short. You're not taking a knockout, and every extra turn you give your opponent to power up attackers, to still use those attackers to attack, to take prize cards, things get out of hand. We saw Regan take a weird route in game 1 to win with just the